Mr. Seymour Rux reporting from Down Under. Well, I've got something very serious today, or at least it is for me. The next day, they came back with 15 policemen with guns, and this time they closed the street off. This is Christchurch, New Zealand, in April-May 2019. And it's completely unrecognisable when compared with the Christchurch that I was brought up in. It's absolutely horrifying to hear these stories coming out of my city, Christchurch, that represents a rapid decline in civil rights and a slide under a Labour government into a police state. First, I'll let these cases speak for themselves. The first is from a British-born citizen, I don't know his name, who looks and speaks like a family man, who simply holds opinions on what is happening around him, especially mass migration into Europe and the signing of the UN Compact for Migration, which the government has signed off with little discussion and no consultation. So he holds opinions on these things so strongly that he has his own YouTube channel. So let's hear from him directly, his own story. The first example I'll put on this guy.
Anyway, the police came to my house and armed, and it wasn't very nice. That was on a Sunday morning, quite a few weeks back, and my wife was there. She was very upset. My daughter was there. She was upset. They were interviewed, and I was asked if I was a Trump supporter, and I was asked if I was a racist, and have I got any ethnic minority friends? I told them, yes, I've got Indian friends, I've got Maori friends, I've got Pacific Island friends, and I got Chinese friends. My ex-lodger is Chinese, and that probably makes me white supremacist. But anyway, and I even asked, this was the first visit on Sunday, I asked the policeman, I asked him if he knew about the Global Compact. He knew nothing about it. Well, there you go, right there, because this has already been signed. The New Zealand governments have signed the Global Compact, which means they've signed over sovereignty of New Zealand's borders to the United Nations from next year, and hardly anybody knows about it. And this is where we are, because the media, they don't want to tell the general public, because Jacinda is God. But anyway, he knew nothing about it, and but I said, do you think I'm a threat? I mean, honestly, do you really think I'm a threat? I'm a working man, I'm a family man. I said, just because I've got conservative opinions doesn't make me some kind of threat. And they asked me if I had a gun. I don't have a gun. I got an air gun in the house, and 177, and anyway, but they said after, they said, we know you're not a threat, blah blah blah, and so that was okay. But the point is, they came to my house with guns, and the neighbours all seen it with guns coming to my house. So it was a bit embarrassing. That was on a Sunday. And now, a few days after, Friday, they come again. And this time there's about 15 of them. And they closed off the street. And, closed off my street and came into my house. And the most salient thing they said to me was, we just come to see where your head is. I said, what, you come to my house on a Sunday morning and ask me where my head is? Like I'm some kind of lunatic. With all these police and you've closed the street off. And, they just asked me a few questions, only young lads. these cops, they were good, let's be fair, they were good. And they said they made a judgment on me straight away and said, well, we know you're not friendly, blah, blah, blah. I even got the impression that they didn't even like what they were doing. And the thing is, again, they closed off my street and the neighbours are looking at me. I know it's not the police, I know it's not the normal cop. They have to do a job because they're told from, the upper echelons. But this is political, this is to shut me down. This is they're trying to force me to shut my mouth, to keep it shut, because obviously I may be touching a nerve, I don't know. But yes, I've slagged, I've made speeches about Jacinda and Winston Peters, and I've said things that I believe are true, and that's my right. We still live in a free country.
I might quibble a little bit with some of the political views of this chap. I mean, they're not my own, but so what? But I'm becoming more and more sympathetic to him, even though I'd express things in a different way with every day. And what I would say, this is what I would point out to the police and to the powers that be that are kind of driving this agenda to go in and ask people what they think about things, and kind of implying that they are some form of extremist because they hold certain views, say about Trump or on mass migration, some of which are actually quite well grounded in reality. So this is what I would point out to such people. In fact, anybody. This is from the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. Well, I'm no lawyer, and certainly not a constitutional lawyer. I don't know that much about New Zealand's constitutional arrangement. I don't think we have one. But between them, the Treaty of Waitangi and the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act of 1990 come pretty close to that. And here we are. This is freedom of expression is enshrined in New Zealand law. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression, including freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and opinions of any kind. Now, I don't see any if or but clauses in the Bill of Rights Act. It sets it out quite clearly, so that anything that goes against this must be surely against the law, because this is, well, as close as we're going to get to some sort of founding document. So next I would like to show you a young chap in Christchurch who was visited by the police on a Sunday morning. He had his camera with him, so he filmed the whole thing, and he shows how the police were distinctly uncomfortable with the whole thing, as indeed he was. He sounds pretty intimidated by the whole thing, and of course he obviously didn't say exactly what he might have said if he had had longer to consider it. But these guys are turning up, with guns. I mean, that's for a young chap who's just perhaps used to shooting his mouth off a little bit. I don't know the background, I don't know who he is, but that would be pretty bloody intimidating. So let's just listen to this particular interaction.
Sunday morning, 10:15, and we've got the police officers out front. We'll see what they want. How you going? Just want to make sure just wonder what you guys can come on. I invite you on. Okay. So what's going on? What's
You,
I'm Nick, yeah, I'm Nick
Oh,
Bush, yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason we're here, it's basically down to the recent events in Christchurch with the shooting there, right?
Yeah.
Based on that, sort of a number of people have been identified who we've been tasked to go and speak to. So you're one of those people. That's
Really?
why we're here. Yeah.
So what specifically
So that's
was
what I
that?
want to talk to you about, but I'm not really comfortable discussing this with you while I'm being filmed.
No, I think you should be because, you know, I mean, you come here on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
It's 10:15, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And you come here onto my property and now you want to discuss something.
Yes.
So I think we need to get a record of this and make sure that whatever you're doing coming around here, and I notice you've got your gun on your hip there, and presume the lady here's also got a firearm.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, great. Okay, well, but hey, you've still got one. So you come around here and you're, well, I'd say, intimidating with a firearm, right? And if you want to talk, if you'd like to talk to me, that's fine, but, I'd like everyone else in New Zealand to know what you're coming to talk to people about, right? And what's the issue, especially on a Sunday morning,
So, are you willing to speak to me off camera or not?
No, I'm not. I think it's important that people understand the direction New Zealand is going, right?
All right. Okay.
And
Just give
that
us an idea, right?
the police officers, okay, I'll find, if you're becoming that sort of,
Okay.
What time? So you've obviously, I understand that you're upset that we have.
I'm not upset. I'm just interested in what the police have become,
All right.
and
Okay.
becoming
Just
a
hear me out.
suppressant agent, politically, being
Hold on,
politicised.
just-
No. I think that you guys need to realise, what did you guys join the police for?
It's not about
What
that.
did-
All right. Listen,
Isn't it?
Just hear me out.
You have to ask
we're
yourself
not
some
gonna spend too
questions.
long here, all right? If you're not willing to speak to us off camera, then we won't speak to you. We'll leave. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Um,
So what will happen after that?
I don't know.
What?
Look,
What will most likely
what's
happen
happened
is
is
another officer will come during the week. Obviously, if you've said
Well,
you're
Sunday morning.
you're coming
you know.
on Sunday.
well, when is a good time?
Well, a good time is when you want to talk. If you want to talk to me, we want to be able to. I would like, instead of you coming here and not in secret, but in sort of like, if you want to talk to people in New Zealand, then it should be open, right? And tell people exactly what you're asking them.
That's what we're
And
here for. We're here to talk to you openly, but not like this. Not with
Why not?
being recorded.
why not? Because are you scared that you might act a bit too intimidatingly, or
Am I being intimidated?
well, you've come here on a Sunday morning with a firearm.
When
That's
is-
intimidating.
When is a good time?
And especially when you told me you said, look, you've come here to discuss the Christchurch shootings, and
No,
I am.
I didn't say
No,
that.
you said
Because I said
people have been identified, right? And,
Anyway,
and
I'm
how
not
have you
gonna get into
how
this.
have you
If you-
identified me? So you've been. I presume it's Facebook,
I'm
right?
happy to discuss that with you, but
Yeah.
not on camera. So
No, well, I'm
I'll
not.
ask you again, are you
I
willing
think
to
it's
talk
super important that people understand what you become political agents to. Okay, so come back whenever you like. We'll discuss it. Bye bye.
Case is that of Max Dubrovskiy down in Christchurch as well, who is, as far as I can tell, being held for possession of objectionable material and possession of a firearm. He's only 17 years old. There appears to be a media blackout on this, but it appears that there was a standoff between Christchurch police and his father, Russian ex-soldier Troy Dubrovskiy, in which Troy allegedly, as the story goes, stabbed himself. And he's been painted as a dangerous white supremacist with guns. So let's just have a look at this picture. In fact, this article, actually, when I looked on Google, I could hardly find anything, but I found this from the international media. Man dies in police standoff over New Zealand mosque attack. Man probed for terror attack found dead in car following interrogation. So this is from Ankara. I'll just read it. New Zealand police has launched a probe to determine if a man who died in a standoff in the wee hours of Wednesday has any links to mosque attacks that killed 50 people earlier this month. The man, identified as Troy Dubrovskiy, fled his home hours before police reached his home for a raid, Daily New Zealand Herald reported. Police had obtained a search warrant late Tuesday after receiving a tip-off that a cache of firearms and air guns allegedly belonged to Dubrovskiy. He was located and detained for interrogation in the Richmond Park area at 12:30 a.m. local time in the outskirts of Christchurch. And then the police approached the vehicle and discovered the man critically injured with what appeared to be a stab wound. New Zealand Herald quoted in a police statement, a knife was located in the vehicle. Immediate first aid was provided. However, the man was pronounced dead at the scene. Dubrovskiy's father has asked the police to clarify the circumstances surrounding his son's death, something that I'm not aware has happened. He wasn't a terrorist or a white supremacist. This is rubbish. This is all rubbish about terrorists. He was never a terrorist. He was a good man, Vlad Dubrovskiy said. News Hub agency reported. However, he confirmed that his son had an interest in firearms. He did not attack police, and why he is dead now, I don't know. I don't have an explanation. So, what is this that he was alleged to have done? According to his friend, Jeff Robinson, Troy suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder from his time in the Russian army. I think he might have been in Chechnya, I'm not sure. But he was an enthusiast at playing a game called Airsoft. Now, this is a game that specializes in the reenactment of military battles that is popular in Russia, but not only there, but in many other European countries, and you can find stuff about it on the internet. You can find stuff on YouTube. So this is one thing that I found. Airsoft, the real military game, and the pictures said, have you ever played Airsoft, a game of chance and adventure? The aim is to eliminate your opponents by shooting at them using replica firearms and tactical accessories. There are different types of firearms for the individual roles played. And then it looks very sort of militaristic, yes, but of course, but people are not doing any harm. So it's played not with real weapons, obviously, and the weapon, according to his friend Jeff, the weapon that Troy used was basically a slug gun that was totally harmless, and he showed us the sort of plastic, not bullets, slugs that he used. So basically, it's harmless. So I thought that's only automatic weapons that were being banned. Perhaps it looked like a semi-automatic and therefore sort of fell within their description. And as for Max, his son, who is 17 years old and therefore regarded as a minor in New Zealand law, less charged with a serious offence. So what are the charges that justify this young chap's treatment, such that a month and a half later he's still in jail, and there's a total media blackout on this, and I'll probably be doing a search later on just to see kind of what is still up there on this case. You'd think this was a major terrorist case, but what's he charged with? He's charged with possession of objectionable material. In other words, the infamous live stream of Brendan Tarrant's, which a good part of Christchurch will have, of course, seen. And then, of course, the other thing was possession of a firearm. So, according to Jeff, his gun was a blank firing pistol, basically a glorified cat gun. So Troy Dubrovskiy and his young son are dangerous white supremacists, if not potential terrorists. Yeah, sure. I will play a little from Jeff Robinson's interview with Ben Vidgen, and I'll leave a link down below.
I'm not planning to play Dick Tracy. I'm not going to get into that so much. Let's focus a wee bit about the fact that what was Max charged with?
During an objection of material,
Yeah,
and as far as we're aware, position of a firearm as well,
right.
which is an 8mm blank firing pistol, which
Right.
is quite often used for either signalling or training, just to
Okay.
make
So
sure people-
basically a cap gun.
yeah, basically just
And the viewing of the objectionable material, you guys have any idea about what that was?
the live stream.
Okay, so pretty much what the other, I mean, you know, this week, I tell you what, I'm probably one of the few people that actually hasn't seen, I've seen little clips, I've seen things that posted around, but pretty much most people around Christchurch at some stage or another will know somebody that's seen this, really, haven't they?
Yeah, I haven't seen it myself, but yeah, I agree.
Well, I guess this thing is for people like yourself and me. It's an enormous case of we're not going looking in it because it's we've got too much to lose, and you know. So, but other people who aren't really that, the curiosity is getting the creature. So this is really at the end of the day what Max was probably like anybody else, just curious and he wanted to. But at the end of the day, how old is Max?
17 years old.
So he's 17 years old. His father has just lost his life. Where's his mum and all this at the stage?
Don't know.
Is she around at the moment, or? Okay, so bottom line is he's just lost his dad, and they've locked him up for having a cap gun and seeing what everybody else around town's seen and refused him bail. What about the person you spoke to, Jonathan Hines? Is it?
Yep.
Has anyone heard from him at this stage?
No, no. I've tried talking to him. He can't be found. I haven't been able to find him. Yeah, everything's just kind of gone quiet.
I mean, I'm a little bit puzzled by this because I thought that a 17-year-old was actually protected. Youth Protection Act, I think there's something like that out there, which is
The Vulnerable Children's Act?
yeah.
So,
So I mean, you know, this is what bugs me, and I don't really know what Troy's politics are. I don't really know what the bigger picture aspect is. I suspect, I'm surmising that he was probably a person that had seen service. He probably had a bit of post-trauma. He probably, I think not even probably, I think it's factually established that it had a run with laws. But it does strike me that what's happened is that the police have come in here, they've overreacted, and there isn't any really compassion or empathy at the end of the day for a 17-year-old child who is really, I mean, do you see Max being some international, you know, member of SMERSH terrorist?
no, he's just a young kid.
How does the rest of the Airsoft community?
So, in this brave new Orwellian world of ours, playing a Russian military enactment game with imitation guns is a major crime. It's a crime of terrorism. Perhaps I'm missing something here, and perhaps Mr. Robinson is not speaking the truth. Perhaps, but I doubt it. As I'm fairly confident that someone in the police or security organs will be watching this, my next statement is directed at you, as if you have come to my door. I don't want to be as flustered as the young man in the video I just showed, intimidated by armed policemen turning up at my door, or perhaps even 15 of them closing off a street. So I'll say what I want to hear. Have I committed a crime? Or is there evidence of a potential crime? Yes, I'm guilty of watching segments of the offending video in the hours after the attack, but not since. And I have been doing research into this. No, I don't have a weapon of any description, unless you want to include kitchen knives or forks, and neither have I ever had a gun. I have strong opinions about what's happening in my country, and they're getting stronger by the day, and I do not intend to keep them to myself. I will simply not be cowed into silence, at least until they start carting people away, putting them away. As for coming to visit me, to check what my opinions are, or to check where my head is, in their words, this seems to me to be completely outside the law. There's no provision anywhere in New Zealand law for criminalising people for what they think or even what they say, no matter how objectionable they think it is. And in this context, I would like to remind you once more of the New Zealand Bill of Rights. Quote, "Everyone has the right to freedom of expression, including the right to seek, receive, and impart information of any kind in any form." Now that seems pretty definite, and I don't see any ifs and buts there. And then what I do when I say something, it's always well researched and it's always fact-based. Am I a supporter of Trump? Because this seems to matter a lot to the police as some sort of predictor of whether I'm about to commit a crime or not. No, I'm not. I think he's one of several very dangerous world leaders, but not for any of the reasons put forward by the proponents of political correctness, Russiagate, and the likes, which is rampant in this country. In fact, it seems to be official policy which you can't contradict. I think there is a danger, not just a danger, but a reality of what I would call fascism, or at least a police state, and I think I've demonstrated it today. This does not come from a few young people shooting off their mouth. It comes from the state. I don't like guns, and certainly not automatic and semi-automatic weapons, but one has to ask, as I have done, who is responsible for that situation, for allowing this proliferation of, I believe, up to 1.5 million guns in a population of 4.5 million people. And I think that the answer to this question is that it's the very people, the very same people who are coming down so hard now on gun owners. In Christchurch, at least, we seem to have armed police, which I've never had in my life. And I do not think that an armed police with a disarmed public is at all a good idea, especially in a febrile political environment such as this. I've already gone through the analyses of the Christchurch massacre, and I think I've provided proof elsewhere, proof that this could not have been the work of a single lone wolf gunman. It's absolutely impossible, and I've gleaned this right from witness statements that appeared in our media, to the opinions of people like the chairman of the El Noor Mosque, to the travel times needed to go from one location to another, to the history of Brendan Tarrant, the shooter, and all the places he visited, and the strange things that happened surrounding that. And also, last but not least, to what has been revealed by Australian investigator Max Egan in his forensic analysis of the live stream video, which clearly showed other people present at the time of the shooting. So I don't know what happened, but I do know what happened. So to say anything more is just speculation. But I have my hunches, of course, my own guesses, but that's all. And in my considered opinion, this event has, at the very least, been exploited to bring in changes that were quite possibly prepared in advance. How long, for example, does it take to prepare gun control legislation? It seems It looks very much as though it was practically there waiting in the wings. So the real truth, I suspect, is far darker. And what comes to mind for me is a paraphrase of Pastor Niemöller. He wrote, first they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist, etc. And he goes through, and then they came for me. So I would paraphrase it something like this. First they came for the alt-right conservatives, but I said nothing because I was not an alt-right conservative. Then they came for everyone's guns, but I said nothing because I did not have a gun, and so forth. And then finally, they came for me. Looking at the footage of the two police coming to the door of the young man in Christchurch, it's evident to me that the police are very uncomfortable in their new role, very diffident, and they realise perfectly well that none of these people, none of them, is guilty of anything. So how long will it take until the police have got over their discomfiture and settled into their new role of policing thought crime? Not long, I suspect. However, in the worst of tyrannies, there are always decent people, and I would like to illustrate this with an anecdote. So sometime in the history of the Soviet Union, the KGB came knocking rather rudely at the door of the famous Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, and they searched her apartment, pulled everything apart, and so forth. And then the KGB goon went across the corridor to the next door neighbour, knocked loudly at the door, and then with the woman sort of out of the door, sort of shaking and afraid, said, "You look after Anna Andreevna, won't you?" So there are always people like this in every society. So that's really it from me. I'm very angry and upset that this should be happening in my own country. So thank you very much for listening. This is Seymour Rocks reporting from Down Under.